Well, hey, everybody. Welcome to the fifth installment of what Tim has now named Pastor Jason's Hot Seat.
Yep, hot seat.
The Hot Seat. Great. And which is really that we get to ask questions about people's story, things I've always wanted to know, which I think other people would be interested in as well. And today we have the voice of Crossroads. When you call Crossroads, this is the voice you hear. When you walk into the building on Sunday morning, this is the face you see. And if you're online watching services, the fingers that type the cheerful things. This is the fingers of Crossroads. So this is Lori Garske.
Hi, guys.
The crowd goes wild. Oh, Lori. Everybody loves Lori.
Yeah.
Everybody loves Lori. So, Lori, tell us just real quick what you do here. What's your official job?
My official job is accounting assistant and facility scheduler.
Okay.
So I kind of help Donna.
Yeah.
And all other duties as assigned.
Yeah.
So everything from contributions, posting that, to making sure that folks have a room for their grow group. So just a little bit of everything.
Yeah. That other duties is assigned. We've really been creative with that the last year, haven't we?
Yeah.
During the pandemic and everything.
Yeah, we have.
I think just in general, that's one of those things that we use that a lot. You know, duties is assigned. It doesn't matter if there's a global pandemic or there's everything is perfectly normal. Like, we're going to use that to our best advantage.
Well, you know, whenever people use our building or they call the office or they schedule something, I often get comments, "Oh, that Lori Garske in the front office, she was so helpful." It's true.
No.
It's true. Almost every year, when we've had district events for the denomination, that Lori Garske is so helpful. Tell her how much we love her. So everybody loves Lori. I'm just thinking back, Lori, I want to ask you about your story because I know you grew up in this church, right?
I did. I actually, grew up in the church, baptized, confirmed, everything, married in the church too.
Oh my gosh.
So my whole upbringing was at Elm Street, obviously.
Wow.
Phil Gardner is who married me. I can name everybody, that affected my life, in a big way. We've talked before, Dale Beck was our associate pastor, and he was our youth pastor when I was coming up, and so he was a big influence for me, at the time. So it was. I have very fond memories of growing up in the church.
Oh wow! I didn't realize you were married here too.
Yeah, well, and a lot of folks don't know. He passed. Gosh, I was a year, I suppose, but my grandpa was a pastor at the old church on Elm Street, and so
your grandpa was one of the pastors at this church
back in World War II. So I mean, obviously,
goodness,
a long time ago. But
wow.
So yeah. So my there's some members, I won't kind of date them a little bit, but there's some folks that still remember my grandma. She passed away when I was young as well. But they remember her, and my other grandma was very active in the church. So my dad was a preacher kid, so little bit of the wild child. So yeah.
Well, and when you were growing up, your dad was also very active in local leadership, right?
He was.
Yeah.
Single Democrat in a Republican town. So that's how folks remember him. And somebody just said that the other day. So it's interesting. Again, if you're of a certain age, you might know that. But
as I'm just listening, I think maybe that's where you picked up your very, very astute social skills. Honestly, I mean, your grandpa was a pastor. That sometimes you develop certain tendencies, extroverted, bridge building tendencies, and then your dad was a local politician in town.
Yep, he was.
And then you are just really the people love to talk with you because you are such an amazing listener and you always radiate sunshine.
I'll take the listening part at least. I enjoy. I like to listen to people. I like to hear their stories. I'm not huge on telling my own or talking about myself, but I like to get to know people And, most folks, some days there's a talk to me, I think, sign right on my forehead. But that's okay, because everybody needs to share. And usually you don't know what's going on with people, right? Unless you take the time to listen. And I don't always need to hear my voice. I mean, I'd rather hear what somebody else has to say.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I think that's clear, like on Sunday morning when people gravitate towards you because they know that if maybe they've been home all weekend and they've got something that they just got to tell somebody that they know that Lori is the person that will be very interested in whatever that is, whether it's what's going on at with their kids or home improvement projects that they're working on, or they went on a vacation. I mean, Lori's the person you go to because
it works. So.
Yeah. So I want to know a little bit about, because you've lived many different places.
Yes.
So you grew up here in Washington.
Correct.
And you were raised in the church.
Yes.
And then you married Danny. When did you marry Danny? And then where have you lived? Because he was in the Coast Guard.
Yeah, Dan and I reconnected. I had gone away to college, and college life wasn't quite for me. It was a little far. So I just went down to Southern, but then it seemed like a long way away. So I came home and we reconnected at ICC, and we're just really best friends for a while. And then when we got married in '83, he was in the Coast Guard, and we lived down in Miami, Florida, which for a small town, Central Illinois girl was a huge, huge change, right? So I learned an awful lot about myself, and that actually probably just started the ball rolling for me. And then we went from there to Charleston, South Carolina. So you go from ultra liberal, big cosmopolitan city, to very conservative Republican, Charleston, South Carolina, which again, huge learning experience. Ended up out in Denver, Colorado for a number of years. And then finally 20 years ago, just 20 this year, we finally made it back home. So, which was huge. It was a huge gift. So.
That's awesome.
Was that the plan to eventually make it back here, or
no, it
just
was not actually. Yeah, just literally. I mean, you talk about a God thing, right? Stars aligned, everything worked out, and it's been the best thing ever. So I'm very thankful to be back. So yeah.
That's great. And so you came back, and Danny, so he was in the Coast Guard and retired, and then a lot of people know him from his work at the high school.
At the high school, right. He, as soon as we came back in 2001, he jumped right into volunteering with the boys basketball program.
Yeah.
And got hired as a coach. Yeah. And he's with the special ed department. He works there. And now I guess I can say it's official. He's going to be the girls' freshman basketball coach starting this fall. And so that's pretty exciting.
And he's done golf.
Yes, he's a golf coach. Oh, okay. Yeah, I forgot about that. Oops. So, yeah, he is. He's the boys' golf coach at the high school. So he just jumped right in from the get-go. And he's worked out at Pine Lakes, in the summers. And so, it's just been a good, healthy move, you know. Because, you chase things when you're in your 20s, 30s, 40s. And then, by the time we came back, we were ready, like I said, to be home. So, yeah.
One of the things I've noticed about you is you're pretty up on different things going on in the local sports. Has that
Some days.
Yeah. Well, has that always been like an interest of yours, just to keep track of what's going on in the community?
Yes. And as a matter of fact, what's funny is all those years we lived away, every week my dad sent a care package, back in the day, because you didn't have, technology and cell phones. So he'd send the Courier, the local paper, every week, where he'd save them up. Yeah. And you go back. So, yeah, I always kept up with things here. And sports, as I tell Danny, he's very lucky. I love sports, whether it's baseball or football or hockey or whatever. So it's fun to keep track of that, and I enjoy it. So, and back, we got really involved, with boys basketball, back in the early 2000s, mid 2000s. They had a really good team at the time and went to state. So it's always fun. And the kids are great.
So one thing I've noticed, though, it's not just that you are really good at talking to people about whatever they're interested in. It's like, I think people come in and they really feel like she's interested in the same thing I'm interested in. And I don't know if you really are, if you're just like an astute listener,
I think it's a combination.
Because I'll hear you and Tim talking about Star Wars.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
Well, in movies and
dogs.
Yeah.
And music.
Yeah.
Because you're a dog lover, a music lover, a movie lover.
Yeah.
And TV. So I mean, like, I'm not saying you watch TV all day, but like there's certain shows that you have a select few shows to watch, and we'll connect on that level. But it's always because I can talk music like all day long. So Lori will say, did you see that thing on PBS? And I'll be like, yeah, and then like all of a sudden, I'm like, finally I can find out of all the people here at church, like one person we watch the same thing. So it's kind of
fun.
Kind of great to connect.
Or if it's books, I'll talk about a book I'm reading, and she'll talk about a book she's reading, and she's an avid reader as well. So
very much so.
Yeah. So you started working at the church 1 year before I did.
1 year.
Yes. Yeah. And so talk a little bit about your professional path that led you back to this ministry,
when we first came back, I kind of started right back in the church, jumped right back in, started playing bells. And did that for a number of years, and I was always an 8:30 person, so just kind of gravitated towards that. And my dad passed away in 2007, and I kind of had a crisis, I guess, is the only way you can say it. So I kind of stepped away for a while, and things, how you get the nudge, right? And so I started thinking, I got to get back, and I missed it, and I needed it. So Donna Semino was the one person in the mornings I'd see on Sunday morning. And she'd always ask, how work was going and things like that. And we were having issues at the company I was working for. And so one morning I just kind of unloaded a little bit, kind of, how you do. And so one other Sunday I came in and she's kind of like, we have an opening here. I'd really think it would be good if you'd apply for it. And I said, no. And so it was, again, just another God moment. I can't call it anything else other than that. And we went on vacation. She was calling me while we were out of town, trying to set up interviews, the whole thing. And so as soon as we got back, I interviewed for the job. And I don't know if she remembers it, but, I even got emotional, during the interview. And I'm like, oh, you just have no idea. And so, I started May the 5th of 2014. So, and it's been, so it's been a journey.
How about that?
So, yeah.
Well, that is a common theme of every church staff person we've talked to, Tim, Holly, and now you, is, you had a path that you were on, that God had led you on with many spiritual ups and downs, twists and turns. Mm-hmm. And then the truth. God just said, through another person or through events, I've got a place for you on this team.
And it came out of nowhere. I mean, it really, truly did. It wasn't anything I was expecting, obviously. And I just remember going home and I'm like, I don't know how I don't interview, put in my resume and my application. I just didn't even question it really, because it's kind of like, I think this is what I'm supposed to do, now. So it's worked out.
So you got here right before I did, and then I remember when I got here, really there was a much larger congregation than where I was from.
Right.
And one thing we've worked hard to build up in the past few years is congregational care.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, but I got here and honestly, I needed extra help, right, in congregational care, caring for the members of our congregation. And so your office was right next to mine, and I'm like, hey, would you want to help with hospital visitation? And so very early on, I grabbed you, and you joined our hospital visitation team for about a year or so.
I did, yeah. I did, which, I missed that part, too, right now, because that was pretty life-changing. I got to see and be with people in a lot of different circumstances.
Huh.
You know, so it was a huge growth change for me personally, you know, to be able to be with those folks and going to the hospital and my first experience was with who I miss her dearly was Pat Guru, right?
Mm-hmm.
She was going to kind of show me the ropes, you know, and teach me what I needed to do. And so I went out on a call with her, you know, and we go into this room and she's just being awesome. And I'm kind of following her lead and everything. And she's kind of giving me this look and I'm kind of looking at her and all of a sudden she goes, "Excuse me," and steps out. We had been in the wrong room the whole time, you know, and it was just, but it couldn't have worked out better, right?
Oh my gosh.
You know, because again, you know, we were there for somebody. They absolutely loved that we came in the room. We prayed with the patient, and it just was a great experience. Pat and I had a great laugh over it, and you know, it was just it was
and
wonderful.
I could just see Pat in that situation because she just had a sense of humor, you know, of like. You know, like stepping out and going, "Wow, boy!"
Excuse me for a minute.
Yeah, it was great.
Oh
it was
my
great.
gosh!
But I really got placed in some interesting places that I thought there's no other way that I got through some things without God. To be very truthful, so it was huge for me.
Wow.
You know, so no, it was good. It was all good. It was all good.
And that's where your willingness to be of service lands you in some interesting spots. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, wow. That's really funny. And you did that. And then your mom got.
Yeah. My mom got sick and ended up in the nursing home here in town. Yeah. And then, of course, she passed away. Yeah. And then it was a struggle, you know, as you know. And so I had to step back from the caring team for a bit. So eventually we'll get back up to speed and I'll get back out there.
Well, you're doing a lot of other things now too.
Yeah,
so
it's changed, right?
You're just willingness to try new things and do different things.
Yeah.
Wow. So what have been, throughout your life, what have been some of the spiritual moments that you think have been significant, that have shaped you from growing up in the church to what you're doing right now? Have there been certain things that have really been significant for you?
You know,
that's why it's called the hot seat.
I know. Yeah, thinking about that, you know, most everything, it's funny, most everything revolves around family and the family circumstances that I had growing up within the church, right? And this sounds horrible, but, you know, even through death comes the spiritual growth, right? So it's been, I don't know how to say it, as far as different times. You know, I've always been a person of prayer, and I've always prayed a lot. And so I think I've been willing to see where things lead and go. And throughout all the different and I guess always the belief knowing that everything's going to work. Whether it's moving, you know, from one location to another, you know, not having any friends, you know, being newly married in a strange city with strange people, and, you know, but I mean, you have to have, again, growing up, I think, in the church and having that foundation and that basis really puts you in a place sometimes, if you allow it to, you know, that you're just comfortable knowing that even though it's hard, I'm not saying it was easy, that it's hard, that everything's going to work out and be okay. So
kind of like you're along for the ride, you know, like
a little bit.
Just
I think
you know,
so.
I have no control over what's gonna, but I'm trusting that in this vehicle that I'm in, I've got the seatbelt on and I'm safe.
Exactly.
And we're good.
Exactly. So do you think that you kind of absorbed that inner sense of confidence in the midst of varying circumstances? Did you absorb that from your family growing up? I think
so.
From the church experience?
I think so.
Because I think, boy, that is such an important gift that we can instill in people when they're young. Because when we're young, we have no idea how many twists and turns life is going to have. But even if we step away from church for a while, if we have that core conviction, that faith deep within. So you think that you just kind of absorbed that?
I think so.
Yeah.
I think that's the way to put it. I remember in the education building, when I was little, in the education building, there were pictures up on the wall. And there was I didn't know the woman, but there was a picture of a gal who was a missionary. You know, and I remember looking at that picture and thinking, wow, you know, how great is that at the time? You know, that, well, now it's even great too. But, you know, here's this woman, I mean, like Jennifer Everett, right? You know, Jenny, you know, you go and you follow this call. And maybe, you know, not all of us have the same calling, but what we do is you know, still a call in and of itself, right? So, I don't know.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. I mean, I think about the feeling that we want people to get when they walk in the door of our church, when they call the church, right? And I mean, people may be calling for any number of reasons, but what they get on the other line, when they walk in the door, that's maybe their first contact with the presence of God. And so I just think about, you know, when I see you greeting people on Sunday morning, maybe they haven't been at the church, well, right now, in 15 months.
Exactly.
Maybe they haven't walked in a church for a long time. Maybe they're going through a breakup in their marriage. And so that, you know, you are posted there by God, you know? I love our team right now. We've gone through, it's been such a strange year, but boy, I'm just so excited about our team that we assembled right now. And I think, boy, there's no one I'd rather have welcoming people as they call or as people walk in the door than you.
Well, and I think it goes to the fact, I mean, when this airs, we'll have just gone through being the salt and light through the sermons. And I think Lori is a great example of being that salt and light, you know, to our congregation and the community.
Thanks.
So your personality is can you think of different the listening, because boy, what a way we show people their dignity. What a way that we can affirm the very presence of another person by listening. Can you think of anything in your life that made you a good listener? Because you're one of the best I know.
No.
No. Okay.
No. I just, I don't know. I think it's just come natural. Even when I was young and grade school, high school. You know, it was just part of me. You know, I knew I wasn't the cleverest. I had a few good one-liners every once in a while, but you know, I mean, I wasn't the I was extroverted, but I think I've always been more of I think I'm an introvert. So I think it's just easier sometimes, you know, to listen and, like I said, give someone the opportunity. Plus I learn a lot, you know, by listening. And yeah, people just want somebody that they can talk to, that they don't necessarily want to hear what you have to share, right? You know, it's kind of like they just want somebody to listen, and I just like to do that.
You know, so. I remember reading several years ago, and I've read it a couple times, that Dale Carnegie's How to Win Friends and Influence People. And there's one, How to Be a Great Conversationalist, and it is be genuinely interested in other people. Don't fake it. Be really interested.
Yeah.
And people will always leave feeling like they just had a great conversation. Yeah. You might not have said anything, but they felt like it was a great conversation. And I think you personify that so well. Well,
I think, too, you know, moving, you know, like I said, that's, for me, moving away from here was the best experience, because it just taught me everything. So I think, too, you know, moving away, you know, where you don't know anybody, and back in, you know, the 80s when we did it, you know, again, like I said, technology, there wasn't anything.
That's right.
You know, once you had an opportunity to be around people and working environment, I just knew that if I listened, I'm gonna get more out of it, because that's gonna help me acclimate, you know, to a new environment and figure out what I need to do, and so it was just always just way easier to do that. And plus, yeah, Dan was gone an awful lot about the first 10 years or so that we were married. So I was alone quite a bit too. And so I think, it was kind of nice hearing somebody else's voice. So it was just good, to listen to other folks. So yeah.
That's cool. That's cool. So it is such a ministry. I mean, because so many times people in distress, they just need someone to listen.
Yeah.
Or if someone's passionate about something, and they're listened to, they feel like an instant connection is made. Yeah. That's why everybody thinks that you're their best friend. Because you listen better than their other friends. So, over the past couple of years, we've done a lot of book studies and different things at the church as a staff to grow more. Have any things, I know you've talked sometimes I learned a lot. Oh, I really like this. Because I noticed that you always dig in. You always read this stuff and you think through it. Has there been any of those studies or anything that's helped you grow personally?
I actually really liked the last one we did, which was on John Wesley.
Yes.
I did. I enjoyed that a lot. It was written in a way that it was easily relatable and understandable. And plus it gave a great history of the church that some things even growing up, right? You're not taught some of those things.
Right. Yeah.
So I really, really liked what Wesley talked about, as far as sanctification and grace and just how you can incorporate that and that you're always striving, right? You're always moving forward towards, something that it is attainable, So I like that one.
That's something that you kind of commented on too, this idea of sanctification and how we're always moving towards something.
Yeah. I mean, I think that that's one thing that as Methodists that sets us apart from a lot of other sort of denominations is that that perfection is obtainable. I mean, whether we get there or not, who knows? But as long as you keep pushing towards it, that's a great goal to strive for. I mean, every day. I mean, it's if you only had one goal in the day and that was to just strive to be more like Jesus every day. I mean, ultimately, you can't go wrong.
Right.
At least,
Yeah, a friend of mine took some time doing an interim pastor job in another denomination. He said, oh man, he's like, every week we come and we talk about how sinful we are and that apart from Christ, there's no hope for us. But there's no hope in the liturgy of the church that we're actually going to improve it all in this life. Mm-hmm. That we're actually we have any hope of becoming more like Jesus here and now. So we just kind of say, if I'm a sinner, I stink, but Christ is awesome. And so Methodism really does fill in the gap. I'm a sinner. I may stink in some degrees. Christ is awesome. But then there's all of this progress we're to make toward becoming more like Christ.
Right.
And so some of the bad habits I had 10 years ago, I'm not as stuck in those as I was. Mm-hmm. And, my wife will say that, that I kind of had a temper more when we got married. Mm-hmm. And it was shocking to me because I'm like, I didn't know that I got angry, this often. And so I realized this isn't going to work in this marriage. It's not going to work. And so I had to really get help and sink into it. And she'll tell people, one of the greatest proofs, of God working in somebody's heart is like Jason was able to dig in and nip some of that in the bud, with God's help and through some friends and counseling and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. But, we often think, I know people think, oh, I'm stuck with this. It's who I am. I'm just a negative person. I'm just an angry person. I'm just this kind of person. And the Methodist vision is, well, you don't have to be. Mm-hmm. You don't have to be. We have the means of grace. We have prayer. We have communion. We have searching the scriptures. We have meeting to grow together. We have worship, and all these things are ways that if we put ourselves under the fountain where God's grace is poured out, we can actually grow in grace. Mm-hmm. And I think it is such an important concept to Methodism. And I'm glad you brought up that resource because it's kind of one that we kind of stumbled upon just as it was coming out through Seedbed. And we thought, boy, this should be good. And Sarah led us through it. This would be good to try out to see if we could recommend it to others. And I led a men's discipleship group through it. It is a great resource.
It really is.
Isn't it? Mm-hmm. It takes the essentials of Methodism, and it could be used for like a confirmation class, or it could be used for an adult discipleship class. And if anybody wants to use it, it's called the absolute basics of the Wesleyan way. Mm-hmm. And we actually have permission for our small groups to use the live stream.
Oh.
Yeah, so if groups want to use it. But really, really, it would be great for people who want to know what Methodists believe, because there's so many different denominations out there.
Right.
And people, they like to learn and grow. And I think sometimes people don't understand the rich, very rich theological and historical heritage that we have as Methodists. Right. So, yeah.
No, that book was great, and even talking sports earlier, like why do young kids, what's their motivation for sports? Is that a kid in their high school maybe went to play college, and maybe there was somebody that went pro, that they see it's obtainable, right? And so with John Wesley, like it is obtainable to be,
that's a good analogy.
Christ-like, I mean, like
you
have to have like somebody that you've seen done it, and then like I can do this, and that's kind of what we want people to do here, is know that it is achievable. People have done it, and just
people have really learned to love God with all their heart, soul, mind, and strength. Not that they're perfect, or that they never make a mistake, but people have learned that we really can obey Jesus with the Holy Spirit's help. So what's your favorite thing about working at Crossroads?
Hands down, Sunday morning. I mean, I really enjoy that. I enjoy greeting folks, seeing, and especially since after we reopened the second, this last time, there's been some really emotional reconnections, with people coming back to the church for the first time and seeing them, and there's been some tears and laughter too, but just seeing people and welcoming them into the church and seeing them on Sunday, and that's one of my favorite things. I enjoy doing that a lot, and working with the two of you would probably be on the top of the list too. But that's just so.
See, that's why everyone loves Lori.
Yeah.
Because the way she says it, like we actually believe it.
Yeah.
She's just, so.
Well,
Yeah, well, I think it's a great example of how we have spiritual gifts in addition to just professional skills that we develop, right? Your professional skills are in accounts and that kind of a thing, managing accounts, scheduling, logistical stuff. And then we have I would say you probably have the spiritual gift of hospitality and encouragement. Yeah. Right? And so as you've used those spiritual gifts, then people get to receive the blessing of the Holy Spirit from you as they enter the doors. And then they get to go in and receive the spiritual gifts of Tim and that kind of a thing. And so all the gifts work together. And so
they do.
That's great.
Yeah.
So what advice would you give to a person who's dealing with, because you've had to say goodbye to both your parents.
I have.
And that was very hard because you were very close to both of them. What advice would you give to someone who's dealing with that kind of grief?
Oh, goodness. Well, obviously everybody's experience is different.
Yeah.
Relationship, the relationship, right,
Yeah.
that you have with somebody, to the dying process.
Yeah.
Right. So everybody's different. So advice-wise, I'm not sure I'm quite qualified, to give any kind of advice. But again, I prayed a lot. I can't not say that because it's the truth.
Yeah.
I don't want to get emotional. But
you can.
No, but I think in both experiences, both were a little bit different. But it's interesting that we don't laugh, but we both, with my brother and sister and all, we talk. We were very, very fortunate with our parents that they lived well and they died well. We didn't have lingering a lot of health issues. We didn't have hospital visits. We didn't have some of the things that, some families have to go through. But prayer works wonders, and to surround yourself with people. It's easy to want to withdraw, and not be around, whether it's your family or friends or coworkers or the community of folks here at your church. But I think it's just very important, like with most things, if you can be around, whether it's one person, your spouse or whatever, that is supportive, that can help you get through, your grief and listen. Maybe there are times when you do have to talk and share, and somebody else has to listen to you, and be around people that are also believers too. That's huge, or at least it was for me. To understand, because I firmly believe that both my mom and dad are in heaven and are there, and Dad might be smoking a cigarette, which he's not supposed to do, but no, I just I do believe in that, and so
I think you bring up something that's really, I think people need to hear, that sometimes it's okay to withdraw a little bit when we're through life. Like there are seasons. I mean, again, Christianity is a long road. It's a long road with many twists and turns. And sometimes we're amazed at how much pain we experience. Like I knew this was coming, but I'm not accustomed to this level of hurt. Mm-hmm. And sometimes we need to be alone. Sometimes we need to pull back a little bit, and then we can re-engage, right? You talked about when your dad died, and that's okay. And I love how you talked about how prayer anchored you through those times of withdrawal, re-entrance, withdrawal, re-entrance. So is that, I know we're almost done, but is that kind of a conversational thing with you? Like with your prayer life? Because is it something where you like do it for 5 minutes in the morning, 10 minutes in the morning, and then you're done? Or is it kind of just talking throughout the day?
It's throughout the day. It's really interesting because when you had your podcast with Holly, if I can bring that up.
Oh, sure.
Okay. You guys talked a lot about prayer, and that's always been kind of my hang up a little bit, is praying out loud.
Oh, sure.
Sometimes in group situations. I did pretty well when I was going one-on-one, like when I was doing hospital visits. It's one thing, but to pray sometimes out loud, I must admit I have a fear a little bit. But it's interesting because I find myself praying, talking to God about whatever you want to say throughout the day. Yeah. Always when I wake up, before I even get out of bed, and always at nighttime before I go to sleep. And it's something that I do, which people are probably like, really? But I,
that's
but
really
I do.
Cool, honestly,
I just, and to be very truthful, growth journey, right? Working here and being around, folks and everything, that's definitely also a place where I've grown, just by being here and being in the church and being here on Sundays. And so prayer works.
Wow. Well, I love hearing that because I'm always, the scriptures say, I think it's 1 Thessalonians 5:17, it says, pray without ceasing. And I don't think that means that we can never talk to anybody else because we're constantly praying, but we have a continuous conversation, like an open conversation. And trying to figure out how to do that has been one of the big questions in my mind my whole Christian life is. And so I love hearing how that works for you. Because I'm more scheduled, where like I will pray at certain times, but in order to make sure that I do enough that I feel okay about, I'll like have to start it. Almost have an app where it's a timer. It runs through a list, and I'm like, okay, I know I prayed about the important things, but what I would love to get more of that conversational thing that you're talking about. It just goes on all the time.
Well, I think for me, prayer helps to relieve my fears, right? You know, and again, it just goes back. You know, there was, you know, things all the way from when I was a kid, you know, to being, again, out on my own and married and alone. And so, to that helped my fear and my worries, you know, being far from home, you know. I mean, Miami's about as far as you can get. And, you know, telephone calls were expensive back then. So, you know, I only talked to my folks once a week, you know. So it was just, it's just become such a habit.
Oh.
You know, I might not be good at other aspects, you know, of my, you know, work in progress Christian life, but prayer just centers me. You know, it and like I said, it helps not being so afraid. So
yeah, I made a new rule for myself, kind of more recent was, you know, if you're on social media, you get a lot of times that someone will say, I need prayer for something. Mm-hmm. And everybody just writes, you know, prayers or the little hands, you know. Yeah. And then I've caught myself sometimes like saying, I'll pray for you. And then I'm trying to mentally log, like, when I pray tonight, I'm going to put you in my prayers. Mm-hmm. And I have told myself that don't type, I'm praying for you, unless I'm going to pray for that person right now. Mm-hmm. So, like, I'll pray for that person and then I'll make a comment or something, you know, but like trying to like not get into the habit of like saying I'm praying.
Right.
And like logging it, I'm going to put it into my prayer list. Like, no, I need to pray for that person right now, you know? And so I've just been more aware of that because it's easy just to go and see some stuff and go like, oh, well, you know, as I'm praying tonight or in the morning, I'm going to put that person on my list. But, you know, to do it like right now, right now.
That's
pray
good.
For that person.
Yeah.
That's good. I know I always try to pray right then when I see it if I'm going to type something because I know that it won't come up later. Right. But this has been really good. Thanks for sharing that.
Oh, sure.
I learned some good tips and hints. That's really cool. I love that. Wow. This has been really good. Thanks, Lori.
You're welcome.
For talking about yourself. Yeah. You're such a good listener. And so thanks for sharing.
And we just pulled her in, Lori in today. Like, was it like a half hour before we did this? So. We're like, hey, Lori, why don't you come on in and talk to us?
Yeah.
Which again goes to Lori's character of how, you know, she's just other duties as assigned, right?
Exactly.
Just like,
all right.
You know, record a podcast. Other duties as assigned, you know, so.
Yeah. Okay. Well, great. So we're recording this on June, I don't even know what.
15th, I think.
15th.
June 15th.
Payday.
And it's going to air the first.
In like 2 weeks it'll air.
In 2 weeks. Okay. So the last week of June or the first week of July?
Last week of June.
All right.
Oh, good. Everybody will be on vacation. Works out great.
Well, that's why we're doing it, too, to keep people connected. Yeah. And so, Tim, how can people stay connected?
Well, they can stay connected going to WashingtonCrossroads.com. If you want to contact any of us, our emails and contact information is up there. And then through I guess you call it the Crossroads podcast stream, which if you go into any podcast listening app and you type in Washington Crossroads Podcast, we should come up. And of course, the video portion will be on YouTube that we kind of share on through our Facebook group so that people that have no idea what a podcast is can still enjoy the content.
Very good. Well, thanks a million, Lori.
You bet. Thank you.
All right. Can't wait for this one.